I want you to kind of just tell me a little bit about who you are, where you're from. Let's start with some basics, ABC.
Okay, so I'm from High Point, North Carolina. My background is probably not typical for someone who gets into fighting because I was never an athlete.
Uh,
I never played any sports. I was into fitness, like I kind of like bodybuilding, but I never competed. I never played ball, nothing. I was more of an artist. I was a musician as a kid. I got into martial arts though later in life because of fitness. So fitness kind of led me there,
wait a minute
and then
now.
I
So
just fell in
based
love.
on everything you just told me, Mikhail, that you were you like a bookworm kind of guy, or were you the guy that when a bully walks in the room, he was going to be the guy that he went to?
Yeah, I was definitely as a kid you probably would have thought I was like easy target, because I was like not even like a bookworm, just kind of weird. I was like a musician. I played guitar and piano, and I liked stuff like writing.
Oh
So I was
wow.
just kind of like a weird kid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you might say that's a word out right now in the politics. Weird. That's not really weird. To be very honest with you, is actually very honorable. You know, to be smart and to be well read and to be a musician. I'm jealous. Right? I couldn't play an instrument. I could only play some drums with my hands or something for nothing.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, that shows that you have another level of focus that a lot of people don't have, right? And it's not surprising now that you're going to be fighting coming up here on October 26th at Harris because you've obviously applied some of that intellect and some of that what you have there into the fight game. Tell me, how have you applied that into fighting?
Yeah, I'd say it all really started with music because that was the first time I started taking lessons when I was 8. And I've always liked listening to music, so I kind of thought I would just pick up an instrument and start playing. And then I realized how hard it was, and it took me years, to get good. That kind of set me up for both fitness and fighting. Kind of just understanding that if I take the time and I put in the time, then I'll see myself grow, and I can eventually develop the skill and get good at it. Yeah.
I got a question for you. You know, I start laughing early because my mind is start going places when it talks about music. Okay, when I was a fighter, right, I always worked out the music. Okay,
Hmm.
always, right? Because da 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 da. There was a rhythm to it.
Hmm.
Have you been able to recognize the rhythm in the music you play and how you fight? I always, when I used to train people, I used to tell them it's like fighting is like playing a different instrument, right? It
Hmm.
starts out like ding, 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 ding. Those are your tabs, jabs, jabs. Then you got a little bit dun, 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 dun. You got your bass, boom, 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 right? And you create this kind of in your mind,
Hmm.
right? This music, if you will, that we ultimately call rhythm or techniques in a fight. Have you associated those things yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's parallels between every art. A lot of people believe that, but one thing that I've noticed is how a really good song builds. So everything doesn't come in the first 5 seconds. There's not always right off the bat all the percussion and the bass and the melody and everything. It kind of
Right.
builds. And in a fight, you really want to come out just jab, just low kick. Then you start going to the body. Then you're swinging side
Mm,
kicks. Yeah, yeah. So it builds and there's like momentum. Yeah, I feel that.
that makes you a little bit more dangerous. Think
Potentially,
about it.
right?
Think about
Potentially.
this. This is an interesting perspective. Here's a kid that would probably be the target of any bully, right, when he
Hmm.
was younger.
For sure. Yeah.
You've now taken that very thing that made you a target and turn it into an ingredient, perhaps,
Hmm.
that gives you an advantage in the fight game.
Absolutely, and I would say I did that with bodybuilding too. When I was like 12 and I started lifting weights, I kind of just accepted where I was at. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be at the school dance with my friends. I'm going to be in the gym lifting alone. But then eventually that turned into good things for my life. Bodybuilding really changed my life. So I would say taking everything that maybe people used to make fun of me for and turning that into a strength that's kind of been like the story of my life. Yeah.
One of the things too that I hear in your story is a little bit of loneliness. Um, I was that lonely guy. I had friends, but fighting is a solo sport, believe it or not. You got your guys around you, but you know what those guys around you do when you get to the corner of the ring? Hey man, see you later. All right? You got to go in there and you got to do it yourself. Did that make you stronger by having that loneliness or that those periods in your mind? In other words, because you're playing solo, you're doing your music or whatever you're doing, and then there is a place that you go that might be somewhat selfish because you got to focus, right? And it
Mhm.
takes that same kind of focus to be a fighter. It really does. Do you think that has been a benefit to you to go into that place when you're working out on your own?
Yeah, I think it all the things I used to do, like art and fitness and everything, it was like a place I could go to just be myself. And so, yeah, I see that. And I think loneliness is a trial. And I was kind of like you. You said you had friends, but you found yourself just not in the crowd. I was like that. Like, I had friends, but I just preferred to just work on my craft. And then I think loneliness is a trial, and any trial can make you bitter and then
Right.
you don't improve, or if you can use it to your advantage, it can make you a better person. So yeah, I think it made me put more value on what I do, and how I feel about myself instead of putting so much value on what other people say about me and tell me. Yeah.
The fact that you are somewhat of a loner, if you will, or have been a word when you were coming up and everything, I know that you must have a perspective on society. So I'm going to ask you the question to ask, I think, my first guest. If you had a magic wand, what would you change in society?
So by the way, I really liked his answer. Um, damn man, that's a good question. I guess I
I
would.
love the deer in the headline. I
Yeah,
love that look.
that's a tough one, but off the top of my head, I would want people to focus more on what's immediate around them instead of like such big scale stuff. We spend a lot of time thinking about what's
Mm.
going on the other side of the world or the other side of the country, and there's people around you and your family and your friends that probably need help and you don't even know. So
Very, very good. Tell me a
yeah,
little bit about what you're thinking about your opponent coming up October 26th.
yeah. So we had a PKB in February, and so I have a lot of respect for him. He's really fast. I really like his boxing, particularly his defense. And yeah, I think he's. I've had one full contact now. That was in May, and honestly, that fight felt easier for me than my PKB with Hydro. So that's kind of saying something. I think the
Okay,
guy's
right,
really good. Yeah.
right, right. Well, that's what it's all about. Well, the guy calls himself Hydro. We're gonna find out why. We're gonna find out why. He's like he's got different gears or something. We talk about gears. That might be it. Hey, give a shout out to your gym as well as invite people to come out to the show.
Yeah. So I started at Limeheart MMA and Fitness in Monk's Corner, and then shout out to Gabo Diaz. He was my sensei for the past year or so,
When
and
you
yeah,
say Garbo, you mean Gabriel. Gabriel. How to say it? Is it Gabriel?
yeah,
Is
Gabriel
that the
Gabo. Yeah.
same Gabriel that fights for Karate Combat?
Yes, Gabo Diaz. Yes.
Okay, okay. Well, listen, let me ask you a question. Do you kick like that?
I try, man. I've been working with him for a year, but 1 year isn't.
Gabriel, hey, guy, he can kick now.
Hmm. Yeah, I try. I try to take from his style what I can, but naturally, our personalities and psychologies are very different.
Right, right, right. But he's
Absolutely.
definitely got some kicks and everything. Well, listen, we're looking forward to seeing that fight. We're going to bring up Matt in just a second here and chat a little bit with him and all. What are your thoughts though about the difference in what you did in the PKB and what you think that fight is going to be like in October?
Well, I love that we have 5 rounds because I was far less technical in February than I am now, and I won that PKB purely with cardio. Um, I know
Are
that
you
he's a
trying? Are
smart.
you trying? Are you trying to say Matt wasn't in shape?
I actually don't think that because he looks shredded. I think sometimes I know really, and I think sometimes, I mean, I know guys that are like cardio guys that have been really tired some days. So I think I'm going to assume that his cardio is amazing. I'm not going to bet on him gassing out. I'm just saying I think 5 rounds is good for me because I'm a cardio guy.
Right.
That's kind of my thing. And also I think now that I'm more technical, I'll be better at using advantages I have, like height and reach and strength and power and stuff. Yeah.
That should make for an interesting fight. I've talked to Matt. I've seen him around. I've seen him around and everything. He's a pretty talented kid, and I think that's going to be a really, really interesting fight. I hope that you will certainly invite people to come out to check you out. If they can't, check it out on akplive.com and all that. But I'm certainly glad you were able to come on the show today, and looking forward to seeing you fight in October.
All right. Thank you, Johnny.
All right, thanks so much, Miguel. Talk to you.